Hello everybody and welcome tonight to the Roadmap live stream. I am JD and I'm joined as ever by our exec producer Matt Pedalston. Hello Matt, how's it going?
Hello JD, I'm very good.
Brilliant stuff. Let's get right into it today, shall we? It is very exciting stuff for us here at Train Sim World and at Dovetail Games. In case you missed it, we did a little thing called the Spring Summit on Sunday, where myself and Matt, 100% live, talked about all of the different things that are coming up in Train Sim World over the course of the next few months. And just checking to make sure that people are all okay on the audio side of things before we get properly into it.
Echo on Matt. So that means you need to switch off the microphone. You've got the NDI audio enabled for me.
Yes.
Which isn't needed.
No, I think we're all good.
Hello, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Now would be a bad time to go echo. Is that working? Working. I do sound like a train station.
He does, to be fair.
Guy. Exactly. This is just how I sound normally.
Yep. Fair play.
The build now arriving on platform 4
is. Antelonius, apologies. You're not going to get my garage door tonight. It is flipping cold, so I am in the kitchen. So you've got the oversized clock instead. Hello, everybody. Let's try this again, shall we? Spring Summit. Exciting, wasn't it, Matt?
Yes, it was. Very good.
Say that with a little bit more enthusiasm, please.
No, it was really good. There's only so many times I can say I'm excited and hyped for things.
And we get you on these live streams to be excited about these things, Matt. So done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited and hyped. It was great. I mean, some amazing stuff that we covered through there, and really pleased that the people have been loving what we showed and looking at the videos and so forth. And yeah, great, really good.
Wonderful. Okay, so we announced all kinds of awesome things. We're going to go through some of them today, and I'm just going to change your source, Matt, so that you are not delayed. I'm going to try and see if we can sort that out for you so that Matt isn't delayed. I
think that might be my side delaying.
Oh.
Let me do some magic. Hang on a second.
Oh.
I'm going to just restart some things. And
oh no! Look at the Teams logo. Oh Matt, have you started your camera again?
Hey?
Have you started
I'm rebooting my camera. Yeah.
Oh no!
Hang on, it'll be back in a minute. Open back in a minute. I noticed when I was looking at it as I was talking, even the image I was sending you was lagged. I'm like, oh dear.
Tonight's live stream is sponsored by Teams, and now Matt is.
Is that better?
Well, I mean, it's better in some ways, but it is also not so great in others because I've now got your camera in a funny place because you've reset it like a bad person, Matt. So I'm going to try and make sure that I can wiggle your camera back to where it needs to be, and then we'll switch around and it'll all be hunky-dory. There we go. Right, that does mean that your camera is probably going to be wrong now for all of the rest of the other ones that I've set up already, so I'm going to try and change those as Matt answers some of the questions that I have for him tonight. Thanks very much, Matt. Hopefully the audio is sorted. Okay, great, brilliant. So let's talk the summit. We announced all kinds of manner of things. We're going to be talking about some of them in a bit more detail tonight, namely the American content that we announced the release date for on Tuesday, so the 21st of February. We are going to be announcing Northeast Corridor to Trenton to New York, and we are also going to be releasing the Acela, and also we're going to be releasing the UP Heritage Collection as well, which is very exciting. We're really buzzed for all three of them, Matt, aren't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Heritage Collection will bring some colour and variety to what's going on Sherman Hill, and the Acela. Come on, 150 miles an hour on the Northeast Corridor on both routes. That's amazing. And you know what? I'm a big fan of the Northeast Corridor, so another bit of Northeast Corridor is a big yes.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about those in a little bit more detail over the course of the next hour and a half or so. So we're going to be featuring those tonight, but we also have some other things and other bits and pieces that we announced as well, such as Niddertalbahn, and that's been produced by our friends at Trainsim Germany. We have the exciting Midland Main Line, which is going to be developed by Skyhook Games. We're really buzzed to be able to show you that in a little bit further down the line. Linke Rheinstrecke, Mines to Koblenz. I got told apparently that German wasn't too bad in the announced stream, so I'll carry on going gamely. That's all very exciting as well, and we've also got Peak Forest too as well. And I said it right for about the first time ever, which I'm very buzzed about today. It is certainly not Peak Valley; it is the Peak Forest, Ambergate to Chinley and Buxton. Yay! So we're going to touch on some of those in a little bit more detail as we go through. We've also got news on Add-ons Manager, Red Lights, Livery Designer for HST, Edinburgh-Glasgow, and we've got a kind of extended period for some of your questions tonight as well. So we've been gathering some stuff from our forums. Thanks very much to everybody that submitted a question. We'll try and get through as many as we possibly can do. But Matt, without any further ado, should we get started?
Let's get started.
Admin ticked. All right, let's do this. So Trenton. So obviously releasing on February the 21st alongside the Acela and the Union Pacific Heritage Collection. It will take you on a journey from New York Penn to Trenton, New Jersey, featuring the all-new NJ Transit ALP 46 multi-levels and the return of the ACS 64 as well, with the Metroliner cab car in tow. And before we get started, it's worth noting that Sunnyside Yard is also part of this route too, because we've got a lot of questions about yards and all that kind of jazz. So just throwing that one out there straight away. The Acela will layer onto this route. We'll confirm the amount of services in a future article, and it will also stop at Newark Penn on occasion. Some will also call at Metro Park as well. We've bolstered the amount of Acela services on the route to make sure that you can experience it for yourself. Right, okay. So Matt, tell us a little bit about the reason why we wanted to do this particular, because I think that's probably a really good way for us to kind of kick things into gear.
Sorry, you keep breaking up, but I think I got what you mean. So we wanted to do another stretch of the Northeast Corridor as another place to run the Acela, and there was a major operator that we hadn't featured yet, that we have license with, and it just made complete sense. We've been doing some other projects with NJ Transit. I think we were in they've got a rewards program for riders, and Train Sim World was part of the rewards program as well for a while. I don't know if it still is. So we're doing some really cool projects with NJ Transit, and the idea of it not being in the game yet was, well, we need to fix that. Building the route from New York Penn down to Trenton was just a kind of fairly obvious, to be honest. When you're looking at all the stretches of what we could do, it was complementary and different to what we've done before. We felt it was a really good option. Obviously, it also gives you the second stretch on the Acela alongside the ACS 64, adds the Metroliner cab car to run it, so you can run it in both directions. Really happy to see that back in the game. And then of course you've got the Alp 46 and the other NJT multi-level cars as well. So it's a great variety of stuff to run along the route. A really interesting section of line. It's quite fast, as I said. The Acela goes up to 150, it should be. It's a racetracky sort of experience, but with the NJT stopping at lots of places along the way. So really nice blend of different operations.
Brilliant. We have a nice little, I guess, a slideshow. We wouldn't be a stream with Matt in it without a slideshow, which we can show players now, which features some of the screenshots from the route, work in progress screenshots on the route. So now that I've managed to sort Matt's cameras out on all of these, I'll swap them over and we can start talking through them. Okie dokie. So Matt, tell me a little bit more about what we're seeing as we're kind of cycling through.
Bearing in mind, I'm going to be seeing these screenshots quite a bit after you because you're not sharing your screen to me. So you've got the ACS 64 here with the AM fleets running over the bridge. NJT Alp 46 here with a couple of multi-level coaches behind, I just have no idea where that is on the route, but the Alp 46 is tremendous to see in the game. Obviously, you can see that heritage. It's German BR101 heritage there. The AM Fleet cab car, what a legend!
Which is
very different.
There's the star of our key art as well for it, which I thought was nice.
It's a real legend in sort of being able to drive a completely different experience than the other trains because it feels really cramped in the cab. So it's got much more of a legacy, old school feel. This is Sunnyside Yard. This has got the you can see some Amtrak stock, the NJT stocks. This yard certainly at this time is NJT and an Amtrak predominantly use that yard. And back with the Am fleets again on this one. So it's lovely variety.
Yeah, I mean we've got lots of player kind of.
Oh, look at this shot! I love this shot.
I know you love this shot.
I just want to give credit actually and shout out to Liam in the gameplay team who took this shot. It's from one of the scenarios.
Yep. So I think are we back to start? Is it the first one? I think this might have been the
snow.
The last one.
We've got snow going here. This is the ACS 64 ploughing its way through the snow.
Awesome. Okay, I think we might be back to the start of the screenshots now. Yeah, okay, so what we're going to do now is we've got some questions, and we'll leave the nice pictures on in the background, but I'll be asking Matt some of your questions that you post in the roadmap thread around Trenton. So let's start a little bit right back at the start. So NEC in the first ever train sim world, how does that kind of interplay with what we've been able to bring out with this route in particular, because it's kind of there is a little bit of a relationship here between the two of them.
Sorry, I missed what you were saying there, and I can't see the question in the list.
So
try again.
So NEC from for the first train sim world. What's the relationship between that and this particular route?
Right. Sorry. Yes, I get where you're going now. We've done the Northeast Corridor and environs multiple times now, and this route is a bit of a hybrid of a number of different things blended together. So it is from Sunnyside to New York Penn. It is based on Lear. It's based on the content that was in Long Island Railroad. From New York Penn west through the tunnels to Newark International Airport, it's based on the original New York Foundation route. It was like route number 4, I think, or something like that. That was the one that went originally from New Rochelle to Newark Airport. So the bit east of Penn is not there. I'll go into why in a minute. So we got Lear from Sunnyside to Penn. You've got New York Foundation from Penn to Newark International, and then obviously all new content west of that. And then the existing stuff has had a polish up, materials, textures, some of the assets and so forth have been improved, and that's kind of the lay of the land between the two. Now, one of the reasons that the reason we wanted to use the Lear version of Pen is because it was quite significantly corrected and upgraded compared to what was done in New York Foundation, which obviously then rules out using anything east of New York Pen from New York Foundation. I'm saying the word New York too many times, it feels.
Semantic association.
So this is, but it means that we've kind of got the best of all of these areas, which have then been merged together, and then polished up and improved.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty thorough answer, Matt. I mean, it's in terms of the as you said beforehand, the bits that have kind of been used perhaps beforehand have had a bit of polish. They've had a bit of improvements to the overall end product, so we're looking forward for people to be able to see that. Kind of on that note, one of the questions that players were asking was the New York Penn station, has that been remodeled at all? Because that would have obviously come from the Long Island. Yeah, so is that been remodeled or reworked or repolished based on this route?
It will have had minor work done to it, but fundamentally it's the same track plan. I think the signalling has been reviewed, all the light baking has been redone. I know, so for example, the tunnels are all properly lit the way they're supposed to be, where they weren't in the original New York Foundation. So things like that. So it's but fundamentally the model is the same.
Okay, cool. So Sparmy asks, is the Manhattan skyline, has that been revised at all? Has that been changed?
No, it hasn't been. No.
Okay. Will the Red Rev ask, will the Boston Sprinter updates, so we've talked more Acela at this point, we'll maybe come on to Acela in a second, but will the updates that we've talked about for Sherman Hill and for Boston appear before the release of Trenton, Acela and the Union Pacific Heritage collection?
I'm not exactly sure how the dates will work out exactly, but we usually do a core update, which in this case would include Boston and Sherman Hill updates a couple of days before the product releases. So in that instance, yes, it would be a couple of days beforehand, and then you'd be able to pick up Acela on release date. But I don't know exactly how that's going to pan out. Certainly won't be after. In order to release the Acela, those updates have to go out at least at the same time.
Yeah,
or the latest rather.
I mean, hopefully it's not going to be 2 days beforehand, because that is in fact a Sunday.
Well, come on, step up.
It will come out. It should come out before the release anyway. The patch, the pre-launch patch.
Yeah, we do try and get the pre-launch patch out first before the release of the product, because it makes it so much faster than to get the product, because it's all sitting there waiting. But it's certainly, like I said, the patch has to come out at the latest with the product launch, otherwise there's no product launch.
Yeah, cool. So Matty May asks, are the timetables human curated based on actual timetables, or are they AI?
They've been human curated based on actual timetables. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Will we see Amtrak LD coaches and sleepers included?
Long distance coaches and such, no. It's just the coaches you've seen, the Amfleets, the Metroliner car.
Cool. And it's worth noting at this point, worth reiterating, I've seen a couple of questions in the chat. Sunnydale Yard is
Sunnyside.
Sorry, Sunnyside. That's going to be the new flipping Peak Forest, isn't it? Sunnyside Yard has been included. Morrisdale is not included as part of this. It's worth noting. And in terms of layers for the route as well, because I've seen those mentioned a couple of times too, the Acela will layer onto it on launch. That will be the layer that layers onto this route. There's not other layers at this stage. Thelonious asks, will the Trenton route add a separate copy of the ACS 64 or use the existing one from Boston?
It adds a separate copy of the ACS 64. The ideal solution is to obviously have one instance used in 2 different places, but we have to be able to cope with the fact that if someone does Trenton but doesn't have Boston, and how then that gets distributed and deployed and so forth, and that doesn't really work very well with the first party platform. So the core requirements have to be part of the package. So so both ACS 64s have had some upgrades done to them. not least of which is the signalling improvements. But I think there's also been some small audio changes, particularly in the cab signalling and the way that it beeps and so forth at you to make that authentic. Both of them have been updated, the Boston one and the Trenton one, but they are fundamentally identical.
Okay, cool. Cross-tie asks, will the Trenton route include true rush hour passenger density and increased AI traffic at appropriate times of the day?
It will have rush hour passengers are switched on and set up across the day, same as Boston, and there'll be the timetable. Again, it's based on the real timetable. So
cool. And the lighting, the adaptive lighting based on the lighting in game for stations, is that something that will be part of this route too?
yes, yeah.
I think there's a future question actually that asks this. The plan is for that to be part of all future routes moving forward, and we'll be looking
Yes.
at backdating it to a couple of the older routes too.
Yeah, it can only be backdated onto routes which are a Train Sim World 3 routes using the new TOD system. It's not something you can backdate before then. But there have been a couple of Train Sim World 3 routes that don't have that setting on, so we're going to make sure that they've got that setting. Cool. Put that out.
Anthony Pecoraro asks, has the catenary on New York to Trenton be updated to be the Train Sim World 3 standard of having the weights and tension cables?
Yep.
Cool. Are there separate speed limits for the different train types? Because obviously Acela has the higher limits due to its tilting ability.
It does, yes. Yeah, you'll be driving the Acela at 150 and other trains at 125 maximum.
Cool.
So there's 2 or 3 speed classifications implemented for the trains that are on the route. In reality, there's something like 6 or 7 different speed classifications, but there's 2 or 3 relevant to the trains on this route, and they are all set up.
Wonderful, great. From a we talked actually in the roadmap about the new pulse code system that's been implemented as well as part of the signalling that's gone into Trenton. Could you give us a little bit more detail about what that's all about? We go into quite a lot of detail in the roadmap article.
So you want more detail?
But
let me just fire up PowerPoint.
If everybody can't be bothered to read the 500 to 1,000 words that you sent over to me earlier today, Matt, give us a little summary of what it's all about and why it's important for this particular route.
It's important for any equivalent route we do going forwards. Actually, there's a shift change in how the signalling works. So prior to Harlem Line, the cab signalling would look and see what the next signal was, and signals have aspects. So they have color setups, whether it's a medium approach or limited clear or something, and it would figure out from that what it was trying to what display to put in the cab, and kind of most of the time that works. But you get into some situations, and there's one that Ben outlined to me, which was this example where you're going down the track and you're approaching a divergent junction. So you're on the next signal is, for example, a limited clear or something, or approach medium, and so it's slowing you down. And the cab signaling is telling you this and giving you a reduced speed because the next signal is a reduced signal. But as you come past that signal, the microseconds you pass that signal, it says, "Oh, what's my next signal?" And your next signal's green because it's after the junction and it's a little ways down the line. So immediately you pass that point. Now you barely started on the limited speed of this junction changeover, and suddenly the cab signaling says, "Oh, we'll bump you up to full line speed." And of course that's nonsense. It should be holding you down for a little while longer, and that wasn't possible to fix without separating this concept of aspects and pulse codes. Now in reality, that there is the aspect that you see on the screen, that is not on the screen, on the signal itself, the physical aspect. And then what happens is that it's electrically connected to the track, and it literally sends pulse codes down the track. If you're familiar with DCC and model railways, it's analogous to that really, except it's not power, it's just data. And so it sends down these frequencies, and then the cab signaling reads those off the track, and then it can use that to figure out more intelligently what to do going ahead. And so with Harlem Line, we did our first pass of implementing a pulse code based system. Now the Harlem Line is a much simpler approach to signaling because it's just really that. It's just using the pulse code systems, whereas New York to Trenton is this absolutely incredible hybrid of 2 signaling systems layered on top of each other that all talk to each other a little bit, essentially, because the color aspects work independently of each other. The code change points, which are the invisible changes that happen, are then independent of that, but working with it. Combine that with when you look at normal signaling systems I mean, I'm not say normal. That's a really wrong word to say. Other signalling systems, I'm going to say, like the British signalling system, by and large, there's standards that say how far signal posts should be apart, which means that when you see it go from green to double yellow, you know roughly when you'll see the yellow. In Germany, it's the same, and if it's not that, there's a white light telling you that it's less than that. So it's really quite predictable. In the New York Trenton route, the distance between a block can be anything from, we found examples as short as 90 meters, and this is in a section of track where you could be doing 60 miles an hour. So, and then the largest was up to about 1,200 meters. Now, if you imagine you're doing 60 miles an hour, and imagine it was going to go from, and it wouldn't, but imagine if it was going to go from green, double yellow, yellow, red in 490-meter sections, there is not a chance that you are going to be able to cope with dropping the speed that fast. Whereas, so you might need to actually spread that out, that deceleration profile out over 15 blocks or something like that, so that you can slow the train down sensibly. Whereas if you're in 1,200-meter blocks, you don't want to do it over 15 blocks. It would take 20 miles to slow the train down. So the signaling system has to actually know how far, what the speed curve profiles are, and slow you down according to the path you're going to take, which is insane. It's what it's trying to achieve. When you imagine this stuff actually dates back to quite old days, back to Pennsylvania Railroad. What it's trying to achieve is the ability to keep high density traffic moving rapidly, quite close together, safely, but without needing any of your modern LZB or moving block systems, which allow you to do this stuff. So it's an incredibly powerful system. It's very clever, really difficult to implement correctly. So the team have done a magnificent job of trying to capture all the nuances of that. And essentially the goal is, the thing is, as an end player, this is all transparent. You'll see an aspect come up and you'll do what the aspect says. And the goal is that it should always be an aspect you can reasonably achieve. It shouldn't be sort of saying, right, you're doing 150. Congratulations, I want you doing 15 by the next signal. You should never see anything silly like that coming up. It should be slowing you down gradually, so that you've always got time. So, and that's how the signaling system works. And yeah, don't compare it to anything you've seen before. It's a really, really different approach. And when it works well, it's all in the background. But yeah, there's tons of work gone into that signaling system.
And you can tell how passionate Matt is about it, because I think he's probably just talked for about 6 minutes without taking a breath. I did ask Matt for a slightly shorter summary than what you put in the Roebuck article, but I'm glad that we've managed to be able to describe it in quite a lot of detail, because I think, as I say, it's important to note how complex it can be, and how perhaps challenging it's been to implement on the team side. So it should be a really interesting dynamic that we've not seen yet in Train Sim World 3. So looking forward to seeing how that kind of pans out when we get to launch it. Don't worry, everyone. I wasn't falling asleep. I was just resting my eyes. I'm joking, Matt.
I had a long and very engaging conversation with Ben earlier on, who did the system, and that was the short version.
Brilliant.
Trust me.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so we've got some more questions. This one is from Crazy Killer from the chat. Says, are TSW3 features on this? All TSW3 features included in this route. He says the metallic coaches would look nice with the wet platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, all good.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, so how Tim Tree asks, how did the research process go for this route? How much access to materials did we have to be able to do all the planning and the scoping of the route?
This is one of those routes that's been done the old-fashioned way, unfortunately, because we weren't able to get referenced material and trips and so forth. Now, again, we have got a number of people on the beta team who live in New York, and it was one of the reasons the route was chosen was because even though we weren't able to secure any support with the railroads for reference and so forth, we were able to get support from rail fans and so forth who were on the beta team who could go out and help us and get answers and so forth. But like a lot of routes themselves, there's a ton of reference material, especially for main corridors like this. So actually, it's really not a problem to rebuild the routes without going there. And these beta team are so knowledgeable. They're really passionate about the trains, particularly on the Northeast Corridor, that they were able to help us really nail the looks and the sounds and the feel and so forth of how these things really are.
Cool. Okay, and I've got some quickfire questions from Northeast Trainman, who submitted, I think, 16 questions for this live stream, but we're gonna try and pick out a few of them. Thank you very much, Northeast Trainsman. So, any NJT services that stop at Jersey Avenue or originate or terminate at Jersey Avenue?
Yes.
Yes.
Both.
Cool. Any deadhead or equipment move services?
I'm just looking up the answers to the questions. 1 second. I'm looking in the wrong place for the answers to the questions.
This is because Matt's gone and I've sent him through some questions from the players. And he's gone to source the answers from the rest of the team, and he's put them down onto a piece of paper. So we make sure we've got the answers for you rather than just saying we don't know.
Right, ask away.
Right, are there any deadhead or equipment move services?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Will the tunnels in and around New York Penn be well lit?
Yes.
Great. Any Amtrak services stopping at Princeton Junction and or New Brunswick?
Yes.
Cool. Any use of tracks 1 to 4 at New York Penn?
Yes.
This is going well. I don't know the answers to these questions. This is going well. Are there any trains that loop at Sunnyside and then re-enter revenue service at New York Penn?
Yes.
Brilliant. Will the time? We've answered that one already. So, question about the horn on the ALP46 or the ALP46. We showed the video of the loco in the preview, the gameplay preview. A few people commented that it sounded a little bit off. Have we taken a look at that?
Yes, actually, it was so the internal and external horns were sourced differently because we weren't able to get external horns for the Metroliner car and the ALP 46. So Jimmy actually helped us with the horns initially, and they were really good horns, but they weren't quite right. It's down to this. It's a complex process to get these horns sounding right. Whereas the internal horn, the beta team tell me is one of the best horns they've ever heard in a train simulator ever. So
high praise.
That is very high praise. Trust me, the beta team are genuinely critical when there's something to be critical, so I'm really pleased with that feedback. But then one of them did supply the horn to us, the source material for it, and similarly they actually came to the rescue and supplied the source material for new external horns as well. So the external horn has been completely replaced.
Okay, that's good to hear. Will the alerters function in the cab cars?
Yes.
Yep. So AI trains. There's been a lot of mentions of Long Island layers in the chat tonight. Is that something that we're currently happy with? Are we happy with the amount of traffic that's currently on the route, or is it something that we want to try and develop as we go through?
So we have a reasonable level. It's not the full timetable, and it doesn't include the Long Island AI trains going into the in and out via the east tunnels. So scenarios you'll see Long Island trains on. We've seen the gameplay team have put the Long Island trains in the scenarios, but they're not in the service mode. And it's a good portion of both Amtrak and NJT services, along with the Acela services. So is there room for more services? Absolutely. And it's something that I'm not going to make promises about what will and won't be done, but I know that the gameplay team have been really enjoying working with this route and want to do more with it. So it's I will certainly encourage that.
Cool. And one final question from the chat before we move on to something else is around the PIS for the route. I know that we've previously used a particular type of PIS for our American passenger routes. Is that something that has been replicated for this route too?
So this route uses it's not the right PIS for the particular line. So it's using the same PIS that we used on Long Island. So it's similar to the UK one, but with the capitalized text on it and so forth. So I know that the timetabling team have gone to great lengths to try and make sure that the right information is shown on the timetable, like service numbers and so forth. But the PIS, but the actual display units themselves are the same as the ones on Long Island.
Okay, Cool. All right, I think that's all the questions that we've had, and well, most of the questions that we've been able to answer tonight. Obviously, we will be doing a live stream preview of Trenton, as well as the Acela and the UP Heritage Collection. I'm going to move back to our face cams. Woohoo! So thank you very much for all your questions on Trenton. We hope we've been able to cover quite a lot of ground tonight, and obviously we will have preview live streams and other articles which will go into a little bit more detail about some of the things that you can expect from the route itself. Should we briefly touch on the Acela, because we've kind of talked about it already, but I'm just going to quickly transition over to another little nice slick, another nice presentation that we've, or series of screenshots that we've put together into a little slideshow for the Acela. Now, Matt, tell us a little bit about the Acela. Tell us why we think it's well, why there was a lot of excitement. Why was there a lot of excitement for this particular release?
It's the Acela. I mean, what more is there to say? 150-mile-an-hour passenger trains in the US is it stands out from everything else. Really, it's such a sleek-looking train, and just highly unique and recognizable. So it's so since we put Boston route in. It's been, and one of the reasons we originally chose the Boston route was because you had the 150-mile-an-hour section for the Acela, and there's always been this strong desire to get the Acela in. I will leak one little bit of snippet of information, and that's that we got all of the reference for the Acela back when we got the reference for the ACS 64.
Okay, so it's been a long time that we've wanted to do this, and a long time in the
very
works.
long time. We've had all of the reference with sound recordings and everything from when this is that original Amtrak reference strip we went out back when we did New York Foundation and first did the ACS 64. We did a full survey of the Acela at the same time, so we've had this sitting here and waiting to get the right opportunity to build it and put it in the game. And with Boston Providence and the 150, it didn't make any sense really with New York Foundation because you'd be really slow and you'd be stopping everywhere in the wrong places. So with Boston Providence and the 150-mile-an-hour running, decent gap between the Providence and Route 128 stations. It's so you get really good running on the so it was ideal to bring it to that. And then of course it was like, well, we're building it for that, and we started looking at other routes, and it was, if we build Trenton, it also means we've got other place to run the Acela. It's like, okay, the pieces of the puzzle are falling together here. This is a really good setup.
Yeah, and obviously it runs on Boston Sprinter primarily. It's got its own dedicated timetable on Boston Sprinter, which I think we're going back to Northeast Corridor Boston Providence, I think is the name moving forward for Boston, which I'm a big fan of. I'm in favour of us moving back to that kind of more location-based add-ons naming system. But it will layer on to Trenton, and Boston's been getting quite the makeover, hasn't it, as well as part of this release.
Yeah, Boston has been upgraded to the Todd 4 lighting and new clouds and so on and so forth, which is as with all of the routes when they get the Todd 4, they just look stunning. But that's obviously meant that all of the lighting has had to be rebalanced as a result of that. Actually, switching a route from Todd 3 to Todd 4 is almost as simple as it's delete Todd 3, add Todd 4. There's not much to it than that. Once you've done that though, the lighting is all completely broken. And then it's a case of going through and looking at all the train lights, looking at all the station lights, looking at light bakes for tunnels and so forth, and rebalancing the whole thing to work well with Todd 4. So the team have done that, and lots of rebaking done on tunnels. A lot of time spent doing all of the rebaking to get that all right. It's so the end result looks particularly amazing. It's a very, very different driving experience in that environment. But then beyond just upgrading it to Todd 4, you've also got work thanks to Brandon, known as Cactus Juice, who has been working away at the upgrading the signaling system to look at some of the signal progressions and so forth, and looking at cab signaling and smoothing out the kinks that were in there before and the problems. And he's done a tremendous job on that. So you'll find that the signaling experience driving Acela or ACS 64 or indeed the F40 is quite significantly improved, massively improved compared to how it was. So it's not just a visual upgrade; it's actually the route's going to drive differently as well.
Absolutely. We'll be getting Brandon, aka Cactus Juice, onto a live stream actually in the coming weeks to talk a little bit about the signalling system on Boston. He's got a really long tutorial video that will help everybody through it as well, which is really, really great. I've seen it. It's a great watch. So we'll be getting him on to talk a little bit about it with Alex in a couple of weeks' time. So look forward to that live stream. So yeah, there's a lot of work that's gone into it. And if I'm right in thinking, he's also helped and consulted on the Trenton side of things as well, hasn't he, Brandon?
Yeah, he's been helping us with testing and providing loads of feedback on stuff with Trenton as well. So cool. Very, very good.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll whistle on to the Union Pacific Heritage Collection then, part of our new freight bundle that we've put together, and that's also coming out on the 21st of February. And I have got something I prepared earlier for you, Matt. Let's move over to check it out in action, shall we? So the Heritage Collection is a collection of 6 liveries for the UP SD70 ACE, and it's also 6 scenarios that have been created, one for each of those liveries, or the locos that have got the liveries on them, and they're all very much focused around the fallen flag liveries that were part of the kind of the American freight heritage, moving into sort of through the 1970s, 80s to the present day. So Matt, can you tell us a little bit more about this pack in particular, why we wanted to do it, what the kind of, and you can obviously see the lighting on this route as well for Sherman Hill, which has been updated too, which is really, really cool in some of these screenshots. Can you tell us a little bit about this particular pack and why we think it's something that we're really sort of happy to put together?
When we did Sherman Hill, I know there's delay. There's not a lot we can do about delay at this point, folks. We need to find out later on why that's happening. So bear with us. But yeah, the reason we did the Union Pacific Heritage Collection, it was kind of like the minute we did Sherman Hill, we knew we wanted to do this pack. Oh, that's an awesome shot. That mimics the one of the publicity shots that Union Pacific put out as well. That's really cool. So yeah, the Union Pacific looked at their predecessor railroads and put together a set of painted up some of their SD70 ACE locomotives using the predecessor as a modern version of the predecessor railroads. So you've got it in the Missouri Pacific, you've got it in the Western Pacific, which is the green one was on there. That's the Missouri Pacific, the blue one. But it's also got my favorite one, which is what I call the Dr. Pepper livery. Other sodas are available, which is
love a Dr. Pepper though.
Oh, I do love Dr. Pepper, I do. Which is the Missouri, Kansas, Texas, which is the MKT, or from more affectionately known as the Katie. I just love that livery. It's really nice. So yeah, it's a really nice selection of liveries, and whereas normally, when you're looking at Union Pacific freight trains, they're all the armor yellow livery, so there's not a lot of variety, and you get the slight variations of with or without a US flag, maybe in reality. But the nice thing about this heritage collection is, look at the colors; it's just so bright and vivid, and it just adds a lot. So you'll find your screenshots hopefully will be that much more because of it. As well. So yeah, it's a really good opportunity to bring those 6 liveries out in high detail.
Yeah, and they really pop against what's quite a stark landscape as well, which is quite cool. And they've obviously got 6 scenarios as well that come with them. Do you want to give any hints as to what the scenarios might be?
I've not played them yet myself, no. So.
Okay. Well, that will be a surprise for all of us then, come the 21st. Just a quick note on Sherman Hill as well, because there was a question about Sherman Hill. I didn't take the name. I apologise. Is there any kind of other changes that are happening to Sherman Hill other than the lighting and the new skies? Is there anything else that sort of from a route perspective that we are changing, or that there are to the cabs or anything like that, or the signalling?
So no, the cab signalling is still in the same state that it was before. So we've still got that down as a list to figure out what's going on with the cab signalling on these. There's no other route changes. I gather that the preservation crew have done some detailing around Cheyenne. because that's actually where a lot of some of the scenarios are focused. It's I know one of the scenarios has you assembling the trains around the turntable, so the turntable's been fixed. That was
Oh,
broken.
Matt,
So
before you go into that, I have something else to be able to transition and show everybody. Here we go. Yay! So here's some before and after shots of
there
the
you go.
turntable and what the preservation crew or the special projects team have been able to kind of put together to just enhance the feel of some of the route.
Mm. It adds a lot more sort of a local feel to it as well, from how it feels. It's a museum. It does feel like there's a lot going on in there. It's got a lot on the ground. So yeah, no, it's a lot of extra detail. Been added that in Cheyenne.
Cool. Wonderful. All right, brilliant. Well, let's move on from the Union Pacific Heritage Collection. Let's go back to our two cams, just so that we can talk a little bit more into the camera. So all of those will be available on the 21st of February, which is a Tuesday. And there are a series of bundles that are available if you are interested and you want to dip your toes into American content for the first time. So if you check those out, they are available to pre-order for 10% discount on Steam. So all of the other individual component parts, so the Acela, the Trenton route and the UP Heritage Collection, they will be available separately on launch day. You can get those if you want. You can get them separately, but if you want to get a bulk load of them, you can bundle them all together and get a good deal. We know that there is a little issue with the Steam individual pricing at the moment. It seems to have taken the price of the lowest bundle that some of the individual component parts are in, and we don't. Steam apparently don't know how to solve that problem, but they've logged it, so that might change before release. But assume that for the time being, that's going to stay there until release. But the actual prices of the routes and the content themselves is available on our website, and you can see those on our article that we released on Tuesday. So hopefully that will give you the best opportunity to make the most informed decision that's best for you.
Scott Nelson's actually asked an interesting question. He says, why do some routes have signals that are white with position lights rather than actual colours and positions, like the Long Island and Horseshoe Curve? And that is just different signalling systems. So there is a position system, and there is the colour light system. And you'll find that routes like Horseshoe Curve, Long Island, they're based on the original Pennsylvania Railroad mechanic of this. It's a set of lights that make up a pattern. So the lights that are horizontal mean stop, the lights that are vertical mean go, and the lights that are at an angle, a bit like the HUD. I'm not saying that's where the HUD was originated from as an idea. And whereas more modern systems, you got the colour light ones where they use the red, yellow, green, and they've somewhat they sometimes they're borrowed on the same sort of thing. So you'll find two reds horizontally and two greens vertically. It's kind of, you can see the heritage showing through, but it's doing it in the with the colour lights as well. So it is just literally different signalling systems throughout different periods, there's all sorts of different. Tri-light is another one, which is you'll find that actually on some of the not on anything in TSW, I don't think, but on some of the other routes that New Jersey Transit run, they use tri-lights, which is another way of doing it. There's Sandpatch Grade, I think, has 4 different signalling systems on it or something ridiculous. So it's there's lots of variety in US signalling.
Yeah, where Matt's audio is a little bit out of sync at the moment, we aren't really able to do much about it, I think, at the moment, unless Matt's able to work the same magic that he worked earlier. So we are going to try and...
Well, that mean resetting my camera.
Yes, that's not ideal for us, is it? Because we know what happened last time. So I do think that... Do you know what? Actually, we've got one more bit of kind of swapping between cameras, and we'll change up the order a little bit, and we'll go back to some of the other things that we've announced, and then we'll give you the opportunity to reset your camera again, Matt, and see if we can resync this bad boy up. So the other thing that I've got to show just in terms of pictures is the HST update, the HST Livery Designer update. I've got some images that we're going to show you just to show you kind of where we're going with the progress. One of the team, James, has been able to put together. He's our screenshot master, and livery designer master actually as well. Has put together some really great liveries for the HST to kind of to wet your whistle and to give you an idea of what kinds of things are going to be available to you when it does release. So I'm just going to quickly show you those. He's done a really good job with these, and I want them.
Shots.
I want them.
I really like those shots.
But HST, Matt, where are we at with things, and what's kind of the latest on release dates or release windows?
I'm not sure what the latest is on the release windows at the moment. I think we're at a point now where the last bugs have finally been resolved, so these things, the little things come back, and as you can see, it's looking tremendous. So if I don't know, think it's coming out. I don't think it's coming out in the next update, but if
No,
it's
it's
not,
not.
it'll in that case it'll probably be one or two after that. We're imminent now on this one. It's very close, so it's just got to get back through QA or past another round, and then we should be good to go on it. So yeah,
Cool.
looking forward to getting that out.
And this will also solve the 0000 numbering bug as well,
Yes.
which I know has been a bugbearer for a lot of players for a long time.
Yeah, it resolves that as well. So, and Adam's team have been working hard on this. It's been a passion project they've been working on for quite a long time now. It's been a big job to get this train done, and they're glad to see that they nearly finished as well.
Cool. Okay, well, let's go back to the two cams then for a second. And in fact, you know what? Yeah, let's go back to the two cams. You can sort out your camera and see if we can sync back that audio. I'm just going to talk for a little bit more just about the things that we have, the other things that we've announced over the course of the last summary stream. It's really disconcerting, Matt, just being a Teams logo. The Midland Main Line announced by Skyhook Games, or by us, but developed by Skyhook Games. One of the questions from R. Jeeves was, is it just trains that are helping with Skyhook? But Skyhook are doing this by themselves. This is their own project, so we will look forward to seeing what they've got to come in the upcoming days and weeks. Matt, you're back! Yay!
Hello. Is
Hello.
that better?
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes. It doesn't include a PowerPoint, unfortunately, Hentis. We don't have it. There are no more PowerPoints for the rest of the stream. So if that's what you're here for, then you might as well turn off now. We're not going to go back to it. Just Trains are not helping Skyhook with this, as far as we're aware. It's a completely independent project, and you might have seen the HST livery that we put together for the summit announce. We'll be sharing more stuff as it comes closer to release, and we can't wait to see what you think of it. Let's go on to the Niddertalbahn, which is developed by TSG, Train Sim Germany. So we're not going to dwell too long on Niddertalbahn. We showed a little preview of some of the gameplay in the summit live stream. So if you want to watch that, then please feel free to. But Matt, is there any updates you want to just quickly provide since from when we recorded the summit video? Is there anything that we need to flag at all?
No, I don't think so. I have seen that they're trying some really creative things out with gameplay, though. So that should be really interesting to see where they're going to take that the gameplay on that route. That's going to be really interesting.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, we will again touch on Niddertalbahn likely in the next roadmap, as well as also some of the rest of the stuff that we're talking about as well, including Linke, Rheinstrecke, Mainz, Koblenz. So there is again, there was quite a lot of excitement for those. We can confirm that we are. Obviously, we're making the route brilliant, fantastic. Matt, do you want to give us again a quick little summary of the route, why we're doing it, and what's the appeal for a German rail fan?
I mean, I think anybody that knows that's familiar with railways in Europe probably knows about the Left Rhine Railway. It's a beautifully scenic, very well known railway, and one that we've been wanting to get in the game again for quite a while because it's just that well known. It's a really interesting route, not just visually because of the valley that you're driving in, but also because of the it has the usual broad mix of types of services on it. It's got the numerous stops, express trains, all sorts of things. So there's lots you can do on the route and lots of really unique visuals for it. Well, one of the things we've also been trying to experiment with a little bit just to see how players react is making the routes set a little bit earlier rather than being modern day all the time.
Right.
So how do we make routes different so that they're not obviously like the ones that we've done before? So I'd seen players saying that those German routes are starting to look all a bit very difficult to tell apart, and quite right, they were all modern day routes. And then the German trains, if you're looking at one version of a Trax loco and another version of a Trax loco, they kind of look the same because they basically are, and that's fine for representing modern railways, but we've done a lot of that now. So it's kind of like and there's a lot of people asking for can we look at some of the older railways. So with Bremen, we set it back to something like 2010. which meant we could bring in the BR110, the N-wagons, and try something a little bit older, while still being relevant and recognisable to a modern audience. And actually, it's been done really well. Feedback I've seen has been very positive, and they want to see more of that kind of thing. So Left Rhine is a sort of a step two, and because of the BR110 in Bremen, we can then build on the older stock. So one of the problems with changing the era that you model in is you've got nothing. So all of a sudden you're back to a route which can only do one thing. But by going back gradually via Bremen, we've been able to bring the 110 with us, and also then add the BR103, which is such an iconic train. I'm going to throw that word around completely freely and without shame, because it is just that train.
A lot of people are very excited.
Yeah, BR103 is awesome. I think Virtual Railroads actually made it for Train Sim Classic, and it was just such a great train to see. So we got the 103 in there. That's going to be hauling. Well, one of the things we weren't able to show, and we're still not able to show particularly, is because it's not been built yet, is the coaching stock that's going to go behind the 103. So the 103 is going to be running IC coaches. The AVMZ, BVMZ IC coaches, but they will be the older red striped versions rather than the ones that you've got with the BR101 pack. So it is more relevant to the late 90s that the Left Rhine is set in. So the route is going to feel quite different, because it's got these different coloured trains, different coloured coaches. You get the mint N-wagons. I do love the mint livery, along with the Orient Red version of the BR110. It's going to be, I think it's going to be really interesting experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of run through what the route entails from a locos and rolling stock perspective. You've got the 103, as we mentioned, the 110.3 in the Orient Red livery. You've got the IC coaches, as Matt alluded to. You've got the N-wagon coaches with the DBY and mint livery. I love the minty fresh livery, and the Shimizu 708 and the tagged 959 freight wagons as well. So there's quite a lot of stuff in that, and we are really excited to be able to then show you some more of that when we come into future roadmaps and future articles and preview live streams and all that jazz. So yeah, excited for that, and we think it will be a really, really great addition to the TSW3 component and quota of content that's going to be around.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool. And finally, Peak Forest in this section. This is our new steam route running between Ambergate and Buxton and Chinley. So this will cover the Monsell Viaduct, which is, again, you might have seen the screenshots from the live stream. Stunning view, and looking forward to making sure that we kind of, well, at least I get the opportunity to take a look over there, because I've seen that, I've been there in real life, and it is amazing. So really looking forward to seeing that one. A couple of questions just on Peak Forest map before we move on to things like Add-ons Manager. While we're here talking about Steam, it makes sense to talk about Spirit of Steam, Liverpool to Crewe as well. So just a quick update on the AI SPADs situation would be good, because otherwise we won't touch on it probably further on in the live stream. So while we're talking about Steam.
Absolutely. So the AI SPADs, we thought we had a fix for it, and we did have a fix for that. Unfortunately, it broke two other things. So that fix has been taken back out, and it's back on the drawing board to work out a better fix for it. So sadly, that would have been in this patch that's coming out, but never mind. So we're still working on it. Hopefully, it won't be long while they find out what went wrong with that fix and fix it differently, fix the fix. Yeah, the good news is it was caught before it went out. Beta team actually were really good. I asked them to give the Steam route a good hammering, and they said, yeah, you fixed that bug, but you broke something else. So we've got that back on the workbench to do a fix for it. So coming soon.
Cool. It's worth then disregarding what we've put in the actual roadmap article, because I think we mentioned something along the lines of we believe we have a fix for it, and we believe that we will be able to get it out to you sort of in the near future. I think what Matt's saying is fairly hot off the press from what's been happening, I think, over the course of the day's testing. So scratch that. We're kind of taking a look at what might have caused it and almost going back to the drawing board with it.
Hopefully it won't be long. These things, the fundamental issue is found. It's just that sometimes these things they have tendrils in other areas and they just need to be tidied up. So it's hopefully it won't be long. But no, we're still working on it, and we thought we had a fix for it.
Cool. And then one of the questions was around that was a more general question was around Steam physics. And what I would be quite interested to hear about, bearing in mind Peak Forest is sort of in the future, are we looking at implementing physics changes to Steam in general in accordance with that update? Is there something that's going to happen before that update? Tell me a little bit about the plans for Steam moving forward.
So there's still work going on with the Steam simulation. If I remember rightly, the team are working on the Firebox code at the moment and rewriting it. I think essentially they're redoing it. Had some really good feedback from Ed, who is actually working on the Steam loco for that route. That will then be fed back into the other Steam trains that we've got as well. So the goal would be to have an update to physics on Crew before the Peak Forest comes out, or at the same time, certainly not afterwards. So yeah, and then for the 4F in Peak Forest to actually embody that as well. So exactly what that's going to end up entailing, all I know is at the moment they're redoing the Firebox simulation.
Okay, cool. So Liam has asked, will Sherman and Boston get previews? Well, we'll do the Heritage Bundle and we'll do the Acela on Boston. So yes, you'll be able to see that. We might not go into as much detail as we would do with Trenton, but you should be able to see those in the previews. We'll be doing one preview to rule them all next week for all of the US content coming up. So it'll be a fun, packed one, I'm sure. Cool. Okay, so Add-ons Manager. Now, we had hoped that we would be able to give you a release date for this today, and I'm running out of ways, Matt, to say the light is at the end of the tunnel. I think I used a Fatboy Slim quote in the roadmap today, but I know we're joking a little bit about it, but it is very much in the final home straight of things. Tell us a little bit about where we're at with things and why perhaps we weren't able to give a release date today.
So the last couple of days, actually, we've been doing a lot of testing, and again, we've got the help of the Xbox Beta Group, who've been helping us as well, providing a lot of good feedback. And we had the PS5 down to no issues. PS4 down to one issue and Xbox down to a couple of issues, but then something's come up, and actually it's more that we're looking at the issues that we're seeing on the Xbox and a little bit concerned that they might be hidden away on the PlayStation, and should these then manifest on the PlayStation, they would cause a lot of problems. Making stuff not available or making the game crash. So we're just going to take a little bit more time to resolve couple of these other issues, and make sure that we're all good and we're all safe and everything's fine, and then we'll be in good way. So I'm hoping that my goal at this point is to come back, find some medium to come back to you next week with some form of a date. We were hoping to give a date today, and that date is not very far away either way. So we're in the best place we've seen. The game is running stable and fast on the whole, except when you trip over these little problems. So we're not far off now. It's just I don't want to push it. It's just for the sake of getting it out as soon as possible. When we know we've got this one or two issues here which might cause a problem, we're just going to get these ironed out first.
Yeah, I mean, it's the right way to do it. We'd hate to release something where we were 95% that it was good, but then that nagging 5% caused a problem. So what that means in terms of a rollout or a release is that actually we might be looking at rolling out the PlayStation version first to players, and then other platforms will follow afterwards. Is that how I understand it, Matt?
It's one of the options on the table. If we're able to be satisfied that the Xbox problems are just Xbox problems, then there's no need to hold the PlayStation back. So as we get, as we're confident a platform is secure, then we will look at rolling it out. They're not all tied together. We don't have to do them in one go. And clearly the PlayStation 5 players are the ones suffering with the immediate need because of all of the Tetrising they're having to do with their DLC library. So we're certainly not going to hold them back, but we do want to make sure that there's no there's no other issues here that might be causing a problem in the background.
And we'll sort of be raising a glass or 10 when it gets released, because I know that
I think everybody will.
it's been a long journey, this one.
It has.
And we can obviously, from a player's point of view, yeah, we absolutely understand and we get it. We're not being glib here. We understand how challenging and difficult it is to juggle all of the things that you want to have in your game. But we are looking at hopefully, as Matt says, having a date for you next week, provided that we don't come across any more problems.
Yeah. Seven Circles asking about external discs. Yes, that's one of the things that's being looked at the moment.
Cool. Crazy Killers, yes, said we need Adam back on the streams to see what he's doing. Yeah, we should get Adam back on one of the streams actually in the future. We'll see what we can do. He's a busy man, so we'll see if we can get him on in the future. I mean, we're both busy as well, Matt, but we still make the time.
Really? You're busy? Oh, I'm not busy. I don't do anything.
Okay, sure, fine. Nobody believes you, but we'll move on. Add-ons Manager. That's kind of the update that we have for you. So I'll work with Matt to see if we can get some kind of communication out next week if there is a release date that we can give you. If that's in sort of the preview live stream for the American content maybe, or there's some other opportunity that we've got to be able to get that far and wide, we will do so. Dispatcher improvements. Now, this was something that has kind of been a little bit undercurrenty over the course of the last 2-3 months. We've been kind of talking about it in slightly vague terms, and that progress is happening, but we have some really positive progress to be able to share tonight, Matt, don't we?
We do, yes, indeed. So the engineer who's been working on red light stuff has submitted code in. It's going through, I think it's finishing QA, and it will be going out in the next patch update that comes out with the American update. So that brings an improvement to a couple of areas actually in how the things work. One of them is actually it's difficult to sort of explain or to appreciate what it's been doing. But so what would happen is if when say a train takes an hour to get from A to B, and in your service that you start, that other train is halfway through its, or some point along the way of its journey. So it's say 10 till 11 and you start at 10:25. So it will start in the middle of its journey. What then happens is that it will get its path to go to where it needs to go to its next destination. And the way that the pathing system was working was it would establish a new path from where it was to where it wanted to get to, rather than regenerating the original path it would have had from the original destination. And 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, that's fine. Comes up with the same answer. The little bit every now and again where it doesn't come up with the same answer can mean trains end up running wrong line and doing all sorts of crazy things. And that's probably one of the big causes in busy routes with busy junctions where trains get into red lights, because they get into a situation with a train that just shouldn't be there, or it thinks, hang on, I'm in the wrong way, so it just stops. So Chris Rogers actually on the chat there has been saying, what about service 1P16 on Great Western Express? That's a really good example of exactly that situation.
Yeah, because that's the one that we used in the roadmap, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because Chris was on the thread where it came up on Facebook as well.
Right.
So,
okay.
So that's why I specifically got the beta team actually to test that. Yay, thank you, beta team. And they confirmed that that's working in the fixed version, and the Xbox testers who don't have that fix confirmed it's not working for them. So it's good, and they'll be getting our fix obviously when it rolls through to Xbox. So that's a big change to how the pathing system works, but it makes a big improvement to those things. So that's good. And then there's a couple of fixes I didn't quite follow when they were explained to me about red lights and so forth. Now, this does not fix all of the Harlem red lights. Is the counterpoint to that, because as with all of these problems, it's never one cause. It's usually multiple causes that cause the same symptom. So this will probably, I would expect this to improve the red light situation in routes like Harlem, and certainly Great Western should be quite a bit better actually, because they're generally the pathing problem that causes the issue. What it does do is it allows us to sweep the decks a bit clearer and see what's left, and then start looking at the next set of examples so that we can start progressing to the next lot. So we still have more work to do, but this is a big step forward. So I'm delighted that we can get this one out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to think about it is how we have combated the save game issue, where we had a large core, what we call a core update, that we thought would solve. We weren't quite sure how much of a percentage it would solve, but we were pretty confident it would solve a lot of the issues that we knew players had. It's quite similar to this situation, where what we want this to be is almost like we put this patch out and it's almost like a blank slate. So anything else after that is something we can address on a case by case basis or a route by route basis. At the moment, we don't know what we don't know. So it's one of those things where we want to try and get this done first, get this out, and if there's anything else to mop up afterwards, we'll add that to our list. So
Yep.
we're really optimistic this is going to solve quite a lot of the issues that we know players have been experiencing and reporting for quite a long time. So yeah, fingers crossed, and that should be coming to you in the next patch, which is the one that will be pre-American content coming out on the 21st. Providing that it all tests okay. I think it's still going through testing.
That's been testing really well, actually. That's been testing really well. Beta testers or PC beta testers have had that one for a while. They've been going through tons of services, and we haven't found any problems at all. So I am confident that this is a good fix.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk. Oh, actually, no. There's patch improvements as well. One good thing to know is that we talked about auto testing, I think back in November time or something like that. This has been one of those instances where auto testing really comes into its own, because we can then see sort of from a very very quick period of time actually how much of an impact this kind of thing is having on some of the routes.
Yeah, so the third of the auto tests that I talked about in a previous lecture was the one that does the full retest of all services in each service mode, and it runs through every service mode, and that literally happens overnight. So when these code changes went in, you literally wait one day, then look at it the following day, and you can see, okay, all the timetables still simulate. Excellent. So there's been, we've not broken anything obviously there. So which is a really, really good. To manually do that would take hours.
Yeah.
So just having it automatically run overnight is brilliant.
It's a good little comfort blanket to know that, as I say, there's this change has been done and it's not going to cause any massive problems. There might be one or two things that come out somewhere, but the benefits far outweigh what the negatives might be. Okay, let's talk Edinburgh-Glasgow. If you've not read the roadmap already, there is a comprehensive list of a patch that Rivet Games are putting together to improve the route. I'll just run through some of the highlights, all the highlights that I'd highlighted in my list that I wanted to just highlight. I'm saying the word highlight all the time.
Highlight it. You're highlighting the highlights in your highlight list.
I know. So in terms of the 385, they're looking at master key now being present after reloading a save. There's a camera view now specifically for the TMS, which is a nice little quality of life improvement.
Just a big shout out, actually. That was requested or mentioned on the beta forum. I thought it was a brilliant idea. Passed it on to Rivet Games, and they also thought it was a really good idea. So shout out to the forums. That was a really good call.
Yep, all of the running sounds will have been updated. I know there was sort of a discrepancy of noise between inside the cab and outside the cab. That I believe will be addressed in this patch. It's worth noting that the source sounds are not changing at this point. We need to, in order to change those, we need to re-record them we need to record them at the source. And at the moment, we've not been able to. We are in talks with ScotRail to organise a sourcing trip, but we've not got that kind of locked down just yet. And obviously, then there will be required to be mixed and all of that jazz. So that's still a little while off yet. But we have removed the chime. We have fixed the traction and the braking issues. Updated track joint sounds. There's a first class livery that's been added to the 385 and Gaelic branding as well, which is quite nice. I quite like that that kind of change to the. I've seen it and it looks nicer. The gameplay side of things, they've improved the expected station stop timings for the timetable services. I know that was a little bit of a bugbear for players. Fixed the emissives on signals. I know that was pointed out by a couple of players as well. Missing neutral section signage will be added, and the car stop markers at Haymarket as well. There will be improved darkness of tunnels. I think is that the blue haze that kind of
The
descends.
flash going into, so all
Yeah,
the tunnels have been rebaked
cool.
extensively, well, multiple times to get them out. So mostly it's about that blue haze and other weird lighting things you get in the middle of a tunnel.
Cool. Fixed missing sections of overhead lines. Station lighting, so the ambient lighting for stations has been implemented. There was an issue for TMS on PlayStation. I believe that's being looked at. I don't think we've confirmed that one is fixed yet, but on PlayStation, I think there was an issue with the TMS. It's not a massive one, but it does limit some of the functionality. So they're looking into that. We believe we received a fix from them, but we haven't. I don't think had a chance to test it yet. And they've implemented the 1 o'clock gun. Yes, I know that was mentioned quite a little bit at Edinburgh Castle. So there is quite a lot of stuff going in there, which has been a positive move. I just wanted to double check because it's not in my list, Matt. There were things like station reflections, deep snow that we were talking about that weren't sort of originally part of the release. Is that something that Rivet are also looking into?
So I would say reflections in the wet, no, not at the moment. Certainly not for this patch. Deep snow, possibly. I'm actually going to be talking to Rivet tomorrow about potentially getting that in. So it's not on the list at the minute, but we're going to do our best to try and put it on the list.
Yeah.
The other thing, there's a couple of other call-outs actually. Is the updated brake performance.
Yes, sorry, I don't know how I missed that. Yes,
is obviously a key thing that people have been commenting on quite rightly, is to make the train more responsive in brakes, and also the responsiveness of the combined power brake controller when you're using the keyboard to make that one so it's not quite as terribly slow as it was. It made the train feel more sluggish than it actually was because of how long it took to the lag in terms of response. So those two things will make a big difference to the drivability and responsiveness of the train.
Cool. Okay, there's quite a comprehensive list of improvements, which is great. But obviously, what that means is that perhaps the release that we put out, are we happy with? I know there were challenges with builds not quite being right when we launched them, and obviously the split release between PlayStation and Xbox and Steam. I think that's a slightly different discussion that we're having internally about how we can stop those things and make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen again. But from a content perspective, obviously there were some things that didn't have TSW3 characteristics. There were some things that perhaps didn't quite match up with how we've done things in other how we've done things as Dovetail Games with other pieces of content. What are we doing to try and make sure that there is consistency across the board, whether it's a third party or a partner product, or something that we're doing ourselves internally?
So we have a checklist of features, but it hadn't been updated. It's kind of the root of the problem, so that's all being re-reviewed and updated, and then that will be part of the process for the discussions with the third-party developers, but also then part of the sign-off process as well, to make sure that this stuff is in there going forwards, and to make sure it isn't missed on internal projects as well as external projects. It covers a lot more than just these things. We're actually going through and expanding it, looking at some of the things that have been added, like for example Birmingham added the GSMR level of functionality, and players quite rightly were, well, hang on, why is that not in Edinburgh-Glasgow? So we want to try and sort of see where everywhere that the bar has been set anywhere, and make sure that that's then captured so that it can be handled, because sometimes the third parties aren't always aware of where we've sort of changed the bar or we've done something, because they're busy looking at their own projects. So we just want to have a simple way of saying this is where it all needs to be, and then they can just check that off on what they're doing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that feels like the sensible way to do it. Obviously, be ideal if that hadn't happened in the first place, but bearing in mind we have got quite a slew of third-party and partner developers now who are working on content in the background. And I mean, right now that we don't have any updates for you on anything that Union Workshop, ATS, or Just Trains are working on for the time being, just because they're still getting to grips with some of the tool sets and starting to plan what they want to do. But that's going to become more important than ever, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really important we have more consistency. It helps the developers. It helps make sure the players know what to expect. So that's what we're working towards.
Okay, fine. And obviously, as part of this, we're giving, or we've suggested, and River agree, that they should be spending time on making sure that Edinburgh-Glasgow is in a good spot as it can be before we then move on to West Cornwall Loco Steam Rail Tour, which is kind of in a position where we don't have a release window for it at this stage. But when we do, we'll of course let you know. We want to try and make sure that patch comes out first.
Yeah.
Cool. So quick notes on a few other bits and pieces that we haven't touched on thus far. So derailing. So Matt, is that, because we've talked about derailing a few times and talked about it in different contexts, whereabouts are we with it? Because we had an interesting discussion a couple of days ago about where we think we are with it, but actually that we might need a little bit of help from players as to what the next steps might be.
Yeah, so I guess after the next update, it would be good to sort of wipe the slate clean and so where are you still finding derailing? Now, there are known content issues that we still haven't resolved, like the derailment when you couple up some of the wagons on Spirit of Steam, because the wagons are overlapping the buffers. And on Diesel Legends, there's a couple of places where you can have derailment issues. I'm more thinking, so that type of issue is something that's on our to-do list and we're going to get done. What I'm looking for is the derailments that are not that kind of thing. It's like you're driving and you're applying the brakes and the train springs off the track and all those kinds of things. So where are you getting derailments you're not expecting, based on the known issues? Obviously, you should never have to expect a derailment. That's silly. If you've got any more of those coming up following the break, then we can add those to the list to look at. But I believe the vast majority of those are resolved. We're down to content issues now. Prove me wrong and list me content issues so that we can get the team working on that.
And that's after the update American content.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, fine.
Yep.
We'll sort out something that we can set up in terms of a forum thread that players can report those onto, so we can investigate a little bit more. But again, kind of similar really to what we've been talking about with the red lights and the save game side of things. Again, core wise, we think we've done what we needed to do, and it's now a kind of case by case side of things. We want to try and again wipe the slate clean and work out where we are right now. Okay, let's talk TSW2 Preservation Crew releases. Now, as I say, this has been again quite a regular feature of the roadmap for the last few months as we've tried to find a release window for these updates. Do we have any update? I say update again all the time. Do we have an update, Matt, for this particular thing, or are we still kind of waiting our opportunity to get these out to people?
Still waiting at the moment. We have a provisional plan in place to get the updates out in 2 waves. But I'm not going to put anything firmer than that on it until we actually get there, because I might be making false promises. So we are working on a plan. It's not sitting in indefinite queue. But let me see where we end up with actually delivering that, and then we can start talking about the goal at the moment is 2 waves of releases to get everything out.
Yeah, and I think one of the things important to note here is that the way that things are working at the moment is that the majority of things like fixes and improvements that we're making to Train Sim World 2 content are being built in Train Sim World 2 as well. So there will be a lot of the things that have come to players over the course of the last, I think it's 5-6 months now, are all in these builds or these fix lists that we've got together. So the idea is that then we'll release them to players as we go through. So there's quite a lot of stuff in these builds at the moment. It's just a case of finding a time that we can get them out to you.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of all the things that I wanted to update on from a core game perspective. But what we've got now is we've got a load of questions from our players that we'd love the opportunity to ask and to get some answers from. Thanks everybody who submitted questions on our forum threads. If we have a little bit of time at the end, we'll try and grab some from the chat as well. But obviously these people have spent time and suggested things beforehand. We wanted to try and make sure we covered as many as we could of these. So the first question, and this got a little bit of traction in the thread itself, was around passengers. This is what I wanted to talk about first up with you, Matt, because I think we released the rush hour passengers update, I think in about August 2021. I think that was it, August 2021.
Yep.
And since then, we've not really done a lot with passengers, and there is kind of a conception amongst players that at the moment they are not behaving as human beings, they are behaving as AI, which I think is fair. And I think also there's a volume question as well that we probably need to address tonight. Let's split that into two. First up, rush hour passengers obviously is designed to increase the density of the passengers on a particular route at one time. Why is it that some players aren't seeing that realised in certain routes at the moment?
So some routes like London Brighton never got the rush hours enabled because we found that London Brighton was pushing machines to the brink and adding another doubling the number of passengers on the route from 100 to 200 or on a Gen 8 console from 20 to 100, so 5 times more, would likely have destabilized London Brighton quite a bit further. So it's when I say destabilized, I mean crashing to desktop, crashing to home. So that wasn't something we wanted to do, and that's why it's not there. So London Brighton is pending an optimization pass, so that we can get that. And once we've done that, then we can turn on the passengers, or the upgraded passengers. For some of the other routes, the older routes haven't had the rush hour passengers turned on.
Matt, sorry, can I just quickly interrupt you, just because I didn't necessarily mean the actual system has been activated. I meant the actual, when you're playing routes which have had rush hour passengers enabled on them, they still feel a little bit quiet, they still feel empty. And perhaps there is a reason for that, because as far as I understand it, the actual system is the same on all of the routes, but because the routes are all different, it kind of manifests in slightly different ways across the route itself.
Yeah, so depending on how the platforms have been set up, depending on where how close stations are to each other, you can actually find that in some cases the passengers have they spawned on the previous station, or they've spawned on the following station and not on the one that you're near, or something strange like that. So they can get some of the spawning behaviour is less than ideal, and on some of the routes that there was a process of making it to where the spawn points were off the platforms, and so they had to walk onto the platforms. And in some cases, depending on the train you're driving, you might be stopped and out before the passengers have made it to the platform. So there's a wide range of different issues relating to how things are set up. So we've got a wide range of things to look at there too. Unfortunately, there never is. There's a bunch of stuff we have to look at there to fix different causes of problems.
So, but they're things that we're aware of. There are things that we are looking at, although perhaps maybe not with as much of a priority as something like Add-ons Manager. There's something that we are taking a look at and investigating how we can improve.
Yes, in fact, Carl Andrews says, they all get off the train when you start the run. We've figured out why that is. And that's one of those bang your head against the table moments. So when we set up the routes, we give it what they call boarding curves and alighting curves. So that is at different times of the day, how likely is someone to get on a train at that station or get off a train at that station. And end stations, so Lichfield and Redditch and Bromsgrove, for example, to take the Birmingham Cross City example, would be set to be classified as an end station where everyone gets off. The problem is if you start at an end station, everyone gets off, and that's why that happens. So it's one of those. Of course. We're revising how we do that, fixing up curves, and that's certainly something we can look to improve as we go.
Okay. And then kind of on a similar vein to passengers, there's been a lot of discussion around PIS as a whole. So no destinations and AI services, player access to onboard PIS systems, specific to Birmingham Cross City, for example. So this has come from Steve Rao, this question. He mentions any trains to and from Lichfield City are show as not in service. There's quite a lot of different individual areas there, kind of maybe similar to passengers. But again, is this something that we're looking into? Because it feels like it's something that is a particular bugbear of a lot of players when we release a piece of content and there is something not quite right, or there's a feature missing, or something like that related to PIS systems.
Yeah, so there's a few things in there. So where trains are missing destinations that they should have the destination shown, that is a bug that's on the list, and that's being looked at to work out what went wrong there. Getting access to the PIS so that you can choose destinations and so forth. One of the things that we are starting to investigate following on from the 385 is, what do we want our TMS to look like? What do we want that, our train effects system to look like? If we go down the lines, well, we will at some point go down the lines of doing an announcement system, because PIS announcement systems, they're all the same. It's all the same system. So we're looking at how that might work. And that would be the mechanism by which you regain access to those things. Until that point, and I have no idea how long that will take. Until that point, then no, it will be auto set systems, the same as it has been before.
Interesting. Well, a little exclusive tonight that's something we're investigating. But yeah, I mean, it's an inevitable sort of path to go down, really, isn't it? It's something that feels like one of the next logical steps to take a look at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it clearly works quite well, even if it's not perhaps as the way that some players would like it to be, but it is an interesting and engaging part of the train. So it's something we're doing some background research into.
Okay. Ghostface1701 asks, my questions are about distance field shadows. So in a previous roadmap stream, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember when this was, but I'm sure that I probably hosted it. So Matt mentioned that DTG had tried setting the maximum distance for them and saw little to no performance impact in the game. Are you able to confirm this tonight, and is improving distance shadows being looked into for existing and future routes?
So the distance field shadow setting tweaks, I guess I did some unscientific changes and didn't notice anything particular. It is in a queue for our tech art team to get to and have a look at. And so, no, we haven't got the science behind that one yet, other than, yeah, it looks like it'll be fine. But we need to be more than just it looks like it'll be fine before we tank the performance of routes, potentially.
Okay, fine. So that's a longer term thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Irish Train Sim asked a question that we've already answered, which is around TSW2 content. I think we've already touched on that. Course Tim asks about Xbox Audio. So Xbox Audio is something that obviously was a big thing sort of about this time last year, about this time last year when we implemented a fix for Xbox Audio. I think it was about April time last year, something like that, April-May time.
Mm-hmm.
Players have still been reporting a few issues from an Xbox perspective on TSW3. Is that something we're aware of and something that we're looking at?
Yeah, I've seen the threads, and I've heard some of the issues myself. So it is something we're waiting for an audio engineer to be able to get open the hood of the change that was made to find out why that's behaving differently now. But it's not something that's being looked at right this second, no.
Okay. Zappertime asked a question around where we would seeing any direct input solution for joysticks or DIY controller panels. Example, we've been talking about this kind of on and off for a little while, since about Train Sim World 2. Have we considered involving or incorporating Cobra 1's rail driver and joystick interface, for instance, as it provides a viable solution for just about any combination of control hardware?
So we're not been looking at any individual solutions. What we've been doing is implementing our own API that allows external hardware, external interface software to do anything with the game, really. So at some point we'll be able to show you more of what's going on with that. But we did reach a reasonably important milestone recently in that the beta team are now playing with that as a feature. So it's got a ways to go, because with great power comes the great ability to mess the game up. So we want to make sure that because it really does, it lets you access anything and everything going on in the depths of simulgraph and so forth, so you can really see the detail of what's happening and make changes to it and so forth. It's very powerful, very cool system. So we have a ways to go yet, but it has made good progress. Yeah, well, we'll keep you updated as things progress on that.
Am I right in thinking as well that that would be a way that we could increase accessibility as well if people have sort of modified controllers or modified ways that they play the game? Is that something that this API would allow much easier ways for those individuals or groups of individuals to play?
Yeah, with the API, you could using again. It's not like the Rail driver where it's all fully supported inside the game via menus. This is an API that you can connect to and you can make requests. So it requires someone to write some driver software to actually to talk to it. I think of the equivalent of the Rail driver.dll and TrainSim Classic for those aware of that. And then you can plug in. Then you can make it sort of whether you want to update from second screens on your phone or you want to make buttons, big giant buttons work, flash a big light in your room, turn your room lights on and off. All of those kinds of external interfaces are possible because the data is being provided to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on accessibility and big on making sure that as many different types of players can play the game as possible. So if that enables that, even if not directly, I think that feels like a really positive move.
Yeah, big step in the right direction.
Brilliant. Okay. So Chief Longshin asks, we've answered the station lighting question already. Has there been any additional development on the quick play feature?
Quick play hasn't advanced since the original launch of TSW3. Seen a few comments on some forum posts. I think at some point I might just kick up a thread asking for suggestions on how you'd like to see it improved, and then I can put it in front of the rest of the team.
Yes. So if you've not, actually, I did see someone comment on this thread. Actually, I think we disabled by default tutorials from coming on to Quick Play after launch, based on feedback from players. If you are seeing that and you still want tutorials to come on, because it might be the first time, for instance, that you played a particular route or you want a refresher or something like that, you can toggle that back on in your settings. I believe it's toggled off by default, but you can toggle it back on in settings if you want to. Okay. I think I've got one more question, but I'm going to leave that one till the end. So I'm going to leave a little bit of time now for players to ask their questions in the chat. So if you have a question for us, then please let us know in the chat now, and we'll try and capture a few of them and let you know, or answer them if we can. Obviously, we've not got these prepared, so we might have a don't know or not quite sure answer, but we'll do our best. Triple J asks, why isn't Oakville passenger timetable included on the roadmap article?
I need to check in with Adam's team and find out where the Oakville passenger timetable is at. Is the answer to that question?
Oh, why has your camera just died again, Matt?
I don't know. What are you doing?
There we go. You're back to normal. Right.
I'm back in the room.
Back in the room. Yeah, so that would be something. I think that we kind of tied it in a little bit to Peninsula Corridor improvements as well, because it's a similar kind of.
Yeah, I think it's all related to the stuff going on with Peninsula Corridor. I think obviously there's some relationship with the trains as well, and I think what happened is it's not gone, it's not forgotten, it's not scrapped. I've seen a couple of worrying forum posts, and it's nothing like that. It's just there's a couple of key things that need to be fixed before that can come out. So we're still planning to get that out.
Sure. Morgan asks, are we looking into neutral sections for our routes, given that it was something that Rivet were able to implement for Edinburgh-Glasgow?
Looking at, but I'm not making promises at this point. But yes, looking at, definitely.
Okay, cool. There's a question. I'm going to take Lorenzo's question and turn it into a slightly more general question, because I think we've talked about this kind of thing before. He's asked, for Matt, is there a chance that Mainz-Bessertbahn will be merged with Kassel-Würzburg since the track to Gemünden is in place and Lohr-Bahnhof is in place? What I want to try and reframe that question is route merging. Obviously, with things like, for instance, Long Island as well and Northeast Corridor. Is that something that we're any closer to being? Is that something we want to do, or is that something that we're just gonna kind of nix that kind of concept right now?
No plans for route merging at the minute. Again, there's been lots of discussions about it, and there's lots of problems and challenges with it. So I don't want to say never. It's a never say never, but it's a not likely at this point. There's other stuff that is not going to break large portions of the game like route extensions will. The challenge with route extensions is joining signaling sections together is gameplay across the two, timetables that work across the two. I mean, if you create a whole new route, so for example, in the case of the castle and Rheinstrecke, you could create a whole new route and merge the two together, and then spend a bunch of time fixing all of the problems that have come up, and release that as a whole new route. But that comes with just so many challenges and actually doesn't deliver anything new to the game. Players are asking us for lots and lots and lots of new stuff they'd like to see. So it's like, if we're going to spend dev hours doing things, let's spend dev hours creating new stuff.
I think, yeah, what it does as well is we've now got quite a few different hubs. I would say you've got the kind of the Scottish hub of content. You've got Birmingham Cross City. You've got kind of the southeastern side of things. You've got kind of nice things that you can then develop things onto, and you can layer things onto, and it feels like it's you're covering a wider area of things rather than perhaps focusing on one sort of geographical space that obviously is going to appeal to a group of people that are really keen on that particular area, but they might not necessarily be as appealing as something that is a bit broader or a bit more somewhere else, for instance.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Matt, I've been answering for a little bit. Is there any questions that you wanted to pick out from the chat at all?
Someone earlier on, I was just back on the API thing. Asked, should they buying electrical components just now? No. Wait. I have no idea when you're going to see the API. So wait until you see the API before you start doing anything that requires it. I'm just having a look. What else is there in here?
So, any plans to update London to Brighton in the future to TSW3 content from Ollie Small? I guess the same answer that we give most of the times when we ask for things where they're not on the roadmap. Get your bingo cards out, everybody. Not currently on the roadmap for us to take a look at. So it is a route that we know a lot of people really love, and it's one of our favourites here internally. But there aren't current plans to, for instance, upgrade the lighting or the skies on London Brighton.
No plans to at the moment. So if that changes, we shall let you know. But yeah, no plans.
Yeah. My Life as Isaac has asked accessibility, please any updates. I don't quite know if that means generally, like, are there going to be any other accessibility improvements for the game at all?
So we're always looking to see what we can do. So My Life as Isaac, send me a message on the forums, on Discord, whatever is, or email, whatever's easiest for you, and tell me how you would like to see the game made more accessible. Put the same thing out to everybody, but by accessible, I don't mean make it harder with extra simulation features, and I don't mean make it easy. What I mean is make it accessible for people with disabilities and so forth who are genuinely struggling to play the game because of impairments and so forth. What can we do to make the game more accessible? That's what accessibility means. And anybody, my door is always open to hear discussions about. I've had some really interesting discussions about the importance of remappable keys from an accessibility perspective, particularly people I think it's with dyspraxia. So it's really interesting things that I'm not always aware of in quite enough way. So, make me aware, educate me.
Yeah, until you're in somebody else's shoes, it's impossible to be able to work out how somebody is experiencing the same things that you are. So please give us as much detail as you can do for that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Always very keen to hear from that. One of the, as an example of that, as a friend of mine who was monochromatic colorblind. I can't remember the technical name for it, so he was monochrome. He could only see black and white, literally, and he was saying that he couldn't play the game because he couldn't see what color the upcoming signals were, and that was the reason, because of my conversation with him, that we added in the little cuttings inside the signal so that they physically change shape depending on the aspect they're on. Yeah. So it's and we know I want to hear from people who are having difficulty playing the game so that we can help them.
Yeah. Zimper's asked, will more routes be added to Todd 4 and the new clouds? I think what we're looking to do with this is when we're so Boston and Sherman are kind of good examples of us building content onto a route and then using that as an opportunity to upgrade them to the TSW3 systems, or TSW3, I guess, lighting and the skies. And I think perhaps that's one of the ways that we're looking to approach things into the future is going to be, okay, if we're looking at developing onto this route, we're looking to do a kind of a wholesale change or an upgrade to a particular route, then obviously things like the skies and the lighting are two of the things that we would want to make sure that we're covering as part of that. Is that accurate, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, we're going to do one more from the chat and then one more that I've got. Um, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Da, 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 da. Right, Morgan's asked a decent question, a good question to maybe finish on. We're not going to go into details on this one or go into any kind of specifics on anything that we're working on, because I don't think we are working on anything like this at the moment. Is in the survey we asked us about adding different countries to Train Sim World, and we have, I think we've obviously got the German, UK, US, we've got Canada, we've got France, we've got Switzerland. What is the process whereby we decide on if we were to decide on a new country, how we would do it? And what's the process that we would need to take in order to create a piece of content from that country? That's a very big question.
I mean, the challenge with working in a new country is across a number of different domains. So at the surface level, we need to look at foliage, buildings, architecture, and make sure and grass and everything, and look at color tones of texture palettes and so forth, and make sure we've got that right for that general area, so that it's not a French route that actually looks like it's in England. So you need to look at what makes it that kind of a route, and then you'd need to look at the signaling systems, and need to really understand the signaling systems well. You need to understand the trains, and the control systems, the kinds of things they take for granted in the cab. We all know roughly what to expect in a British cab of a train. We know roughly what to expect in a German cab of a train. But if you go to a different country, those things might be similar. They might be different. They might be called something different. The way you interact with it might be different in that country. So really getting to grips with all of those kinds of things. So really, it's about the team have to become an expert in that country's railways. So you've spent all of your life learning everything there is to know about X country's railways. Well, our team has to get to your level relatively quickly, which they're capable of doing, but it's not a 5-minute job. It takes quite a while of throwing yourself in, reading lots of books, browsing lots of forums, watching lots of videos, and spending time talking to people. So the other thing we need to do there is to get people on board, so that we can, or who are experts in that country, maybe work in that country's railways, and actually get talking to them directly, so we can ask them questions or invite them to explain, things to us. And then you can start assembling it all together, and then of course, having got all the component parts, then there's gameplay. How does the operations differ? What is the language on radios and all that stuff? So it's like it's like they say with the English language between the Britons and Americans. It's the same words in a different way.
Well, it's localization, isn't it? That it's not translation, it's localization. It's making it relevant, and it's making it contextual for that audience. We haven't touched on licensing either, which is obviously something that is a big thing for the things like this, and we would only be able to really work on new areas if we were able to get licenses for the stuff that runs on it.
Yes.
So, not saying by any means that it's something that we don't want to do or whatever. It's something that obviously we'd love to be able to bring Train Sim World to lots of different places in the world, but it is quite a complex process, and it's not one that happens overnight. So we have to be absolutely sure it's something that we want to do before we dip our toes into it. And actually, if we're looking at things like our partner program, for instance, who have experts all over the world in different types of or different nationalities or geographies of the railways. There may be a better option for us to be able to kind of explore some of these areas than, say, we are right now internally.
Yes, yeah, it's a complex subject. We need to get, as you say, need to get the licensing sorted, and it's much more likely that a third-party developer is going to bring local knowledge, expertise, and hit the ground running. But a third-party developer will also come at it with a different view and another way they will approach that. You see, with Skyhook and River Games, that the routes don't look like ours or work like ours, and that's a good thing. It's variety, and that's good. So it's and different developers will bring that with different countries as well. So I'm definitely a fan of getting other developers on and letting developers from those countries be the ones that are the most likely to bring the best content from those countries forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, final question for tonight, and this one's a little bit of a loaded question. Jamie asked it in the forum thread, and I'm not going to make Matt answer this question because I think it's a little bit unfair, but I'm going to try and take it on. And the question is, does Matt think things have got better at Dovetail Games since he took up his role as executive producer? Now, of course, I'm not going to ask Matt to ask that question because it's a bit of a lose-lose question. But I think from a perspective of somebody who was obviously working with Matt, I can see kind of from the inside how things are working. I've been at Dovetail for, well, it'll be 2 years tomorrow. Happy birthday, me. And Matt, I think, has been exec producer, I think, since about the turn of 2020. 2022-ish, something like that. So the start of 2022. And I think if you look at kind of where we were back then, where I think we just released Rush Hour, and there were some challenges that came alongside that. There were a few kind of releases around them that perhaps weren't up to snuff. And if you look at where perhaps we are now, where we've released Train Sim World 3, which is, in my opinion, it's a significant improvement on how players have gone to play the game, and we've seen some really lovely feedback internally as well. You will not find somebody who works harder than Matt at making sure that this game is as good as it possibly can be. I should know, we've had many very late conversations at night about different things, and very rarely does he leave the office before some ridiculous times in the evening. And he has a genuine passion for making this game as good as it can be. He's got a genuine passion for trains, and I think that is really rare to find a games company where that person is so passionate about the subject matter for which they are developing the content for. And obviously that has its challenges. Matt is a perfectionist. He wants everything to be as good as it can possibly be, and he sees perhaps things that a normal exec producer might not see. And that's a challenge. We're not going to get everything perfect all of the time, and we obviously want you to hold us to account when we don't. But I think in terms of where we are and where we were, I think we're in a significantly better position, both from an internal structurally perspective and how processes are done and things like the auto testing system and all of that kind of thing that would only have been a pipe dream 2 years ago. It's kind of where we are now is I think a really demonstratively positive place to be. As much as I say, there are times where we come onto roadmaps like this and we have to talk about difficult subjects. I think you do that in most scenarios as an exec producer. You have to make tough decisions. You have to do things that perhaps are not things that you necessarily want to do all of the time, but you have to try and make those sometimes very difficult, challenging decisions. But I think Matt does it decisively and well.
Yeah, no, that's
and he's also a good human as well.
Decisions.
He's also a good human as well as Train Simulator driver adds into the chat as well.
Well, thank you very much. No, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, everybody. It is a challenging but fun role, very much fun role. But yeah, as JD says, the hard bit is the cruel to be kind decisions sometimes, where the thing is your job is to get it out, not to have perfection that never releases.
I mean, I've certainly learned a lot, and that's a really good thing for me. I love learning new things, and I love people who are passionate about things, and that's absolutely why I do what I do. So it's great to have somebody who I can bounce off of like Matt, who is quite clearly the brains of this operation. Certainly not me, but I can talk and I can do things and I can ask questions, which is quite nice. And Matt generally knows the answer to them, which is great. All right. I think that's a nice note to end it on tonight. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you haven't read the article for the roadmap, there's some stuff that we might not have covered tonight in there. There's things like I know Matt talked about it from 6 minutes, but the pulse code system, there's a good summary of how it all works. And there are a few other nice screenshots and bits and pieces that you might not have otherwise seen from tonight's live stream. So we hope we've been able to cover quite a few questions, quite a few areas that perhaps we wouldn't normally do on a roadmap. But we'll be back this time, well, not this time next month, but I think it's the first Thursday of next month. I think it's the 2nd of March. It might be the first one that we've done for a long time, which is actually hit the first Thursday of the month. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. If you are interested in the American content, obviously that is coming on the 21st of February, and we'd love to have as many people playing it on release day as we possibly can do, getting loads and loads of really great feedback from you all. But we're really looking forward to it. We'll be doing a preview of the content next week. Stay tuned to the Ralph Hunt TV schedule for a little bit more detail, but that should be being published tomorrow. And I think other than that, I think we're done. Matt, is there anything else you wanted to say before we finish up?
I'm just going to actually pass on the thanks that you're all sending to me. A lot of what you're thanking me for is down to the team and the effort they're putting as well. So I am going to pass on your thanks. I appreciate it, and deflect it down to the onto the team.
Radiate it onto everyone else.
Radiate it to the team, because they've been absolutely gunning for it as well. They're doing a tremendous job, and I'll add my thanks to the team as well. So
he's humble. He's humble and grounded as well, folks. All right, thanks very much, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your evenings, and if I don't see you beforehand, have a lovely weekend. We'll see you on the other side.
Cheers, everyone.